Okay, hello everyone. My name is Sampan Mehta, and today I'll be talking about the passenger demand in the aviation market and how various factors have influenced this demand, specifically after the impact of COVID-19. So let's get started. Okay, so before we get started, just a quick introduction about who I am. I was born in Fremont, California, and I was raised in Union City and Fremont throughout my entire life. I'm currently a junior at American High School in Fremont, and one of my major passions is the aviation community, keeping up with traveling and news. And lastly, my mentor at Polygence, who greatly assisted me, is Dr. Apollo. Okay, so now moving on to why I actually chose passenger demand as my research focus. As mentioned before, I love to travel, and I've always had a hobby of keeping up with all the news in the airline industry. Since the COVID-19 pandemic, the world was brought to a standstill, and the airline market was greatly affected by the pandemic because demand was falling, prices were increasing, and airlines started to struggle with high losses. Fast forward, after the COVID-19 pandemic, restrictions began to drop and people were traveling again. Demand was going up, all while prices started to remain high for airlines to reach profitability again. And this connects to a personal story of mine, which is one of my major reasons for researching. Because the first time I was able to travel after the COVID-19 pandemic internationally was in April of 2022, followed by December of 2022, and then December of 2023. And as I was looking for flight tickets, I started to realize just how expensive flight prices were after the pandemic. And I'd assumed it was mainly due to the holiday season and spring and winter. But it was just not the specific dates. Flight prices were surging throughout the entire year, and no flight ticket was getting cheaper, but rather kept increasing. And my family even booked several months in advance, as we usually used to, but again at extremely high prices. So at this point, I decided to keep a track of the prices after we bought our ticket. And up until the day of our flight, the price of our ticket never fell below what we bought it for, but it rather increased consistently. And even weirder, on the day of the flight was sold out to the point of overbooking, meaning more tickets than seats were sold. At this point, I knew I had to research further into how this was happening, how demand remained so high even though prices were inflated. Okay, so now moving on to the goals of my presentation today, which mainly revolves around my research question. I plan to take a deeper look into how the demand has been able to increase significantly, even though the prices have been constantly increasing. There's clearly something that's encouraging people to spend thousands of dollars for a single flight ticket, and how they're not discouraged by high prices. So today I plan to focus on several factors that could be potential reasons. And these include pricing strategies, seasonal travel influences, airline marketing techniques, and most importantly, the long-lasting effects of the COVID-19 pandemic. So this is just my project abstract, just summarizing the main points I made in my previous slides and a quick summary of my goals. Okay, so continuing on to one of the first factors, which is airline marketing strategies. Airline marketing strategies are obviously designed to reach new customers while keeping old customers engaged at the same time. Airlines need to reflect what their brands stand for and hope to appeal to customers who see their product as valuable. So a great example of this would be low-cost and luxury carriers. Low-cost carriers promote the most basic services and keep their prices very low, which obviously appeals to low-budget travelers looking to save money. And leisure travelers, on the other hand, focused on luxury carriers. And luxury carriers have extremely difficult competition in the market, so they have to get creative with their marketing to attract more customers. And one major way they do this is through travel search engines or external travel agencies, who push advertisements for low fares or better value fares with no compromise on luxury service. And another major marketing strategy are the promotions of customer loyalty programs, which provide amazing benefits for travelers who remain loyal for a specific amount of time. And lastly, another huge marketing strategy is the promotion of convenient services, or the soft product of the airline, which include entertainment and dining on board, and then on the outside of it, the online check-in services, digital boarding passes, and airline applications. Okay, and now the next factor is flight pricing. Flight pricing strategies are always changing as the market changes, and airlines need to focus on pricing strategies that can maximize their own revenue and profit. There are four major pricing strategies, which include competitive pricing, penetration pricing, lowest pricing, and most importantly, the dynamic pricing. So starting with competitive pricing is when airlines use resources to get insight on their competition's pricing and set their fares based on the competition. Penetration pricing is when airlines use the lowest of the low fares to encourage customers to fly with the airline. And lowest pricing strategies are mainly used by low-cost carriers who aim to keep their prices lower than any other airline on the market, which keeps their operational costs low as well. And lastly, dynamic pricing, which is the most used strategy for airlines, as it allows them to change their prices in real time based on current market demand, seat availability, seasonal travel, and a variety of other factors. With dynamic pricing, airlines find ways to consistently maximize profits and revenue and quickly respond to market changes, focus on data-driven decisions, and increase their efficiency. And recently, the COVID-19 pandemic has brought a big change to dynamic pricing, and that is inflating the passenger demand by keeping supply of seats low and costs high. And with this strategy, airlines continuously increase their prices as they keep supply low. Okay, so moving on to seasonal travel cycles. Seasonal travel cycles change from year to year, but there's always a consistent travel demand increase during the summer months and the Christmas holiday. And during these two time periods each year, increase in travel demand allows airlines to increase the cost as travelers are consistently willing to pay more. For example, if you search for flights during the school months or the normal calendar year, the prices will be significantly cheaper because there's a less demand to fly. But however, during the school holiday and work holidays, people have more availability to travel. And with that availability, they're ready to spend thousands of dollars for the flight ticket. And even though the airline market is extremely competitive, if all airlines in the market increase their prices significantly, the customers are at a loss. And the holidays are also a very difficult time to travel in, as you have to deal with overinflated flight tickets, deal with crowds, overbooked flights, cancellations, and even bad weather. But people are unable to do anything about these prices or these issues because this is the only time they have availability to travel and are clearly ready to spend a ton of money for it. Okay, so now shifting focus to this graph, which is with data presented by the US Bureau of Transportation, which shows the amount of passengers that boarded a plane from January of 2000 to December of 2023 in the US domestic market. As you can see, there was a major drop in the early 2020 when the pandemic led to a halt in flights. And you can also see the slight increases during the summer months, which indicate the seasonal travel boost. Okay, so now moving on to COVID-19 pandemic. The COVID-19 pandemic brought the airline industry to a halt, and airlines are forced to increase prices, decrease capacity, such as cutting flights to specific cities or reducing services to some cities, and the demand rapidly decreased. But all of this turned around after COVID-19 restrictions were being removed. But even after restrictions were being removed, unfortunately, not everything changed. Because as demand skyrocketed, airlines started to see more profit. But after everything, prices remained sky high and only kept increasing. While prices increased, demand rose at the same time. And how could prices and demand rise at the same time? Because when the pandemic hit, airlines severely reduced their flight capacity and reduced their flight services, and continued to do so after the pandemic restrictions were lifted. And with this strategy, they artificially created increased demand and kept prices high rather than increasing their flight capacity. Okay, thank you so much for your time and listening to my presentation today, and let me know if you have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that presentation. We do have some questions. Let's see, the first one, do all airlines utilize the same marketing and pricing strategies?
Yes, they use the same types of strategies, but they'll cater it to what their brands stand for. For example, the low-cost carriers will obviously promote low fares, but of course, they won't show the same services that luxury airlines would show typically.
Thank you for that. And why might a large legacy airline like Delta use a different strategy than a discount airline like Spirit or JetBlue?
Right. So Delta is known as a higher luxury carrier compared to Spirit or Frontier. And that's because they want to attract customers who believe in leisure travel, and they want to make their flights sound as comfortable and provide a smooth experience. While Spirit, you won't get all of those services, but you'd rather get a lower price in exchange for that. And that's the major difference between.